think we'll make a start. We can link those folks in when we're able. Really warm welcome to all of you this morning. My name's Kate Day. I'm an advocate with Common Grace Aotearoa and one of the organisers of the petition that we're here to celebrate and to launch officially. I will just hand over to Brianne. Brianne is a local to the space as the store manager at the Free Store out in the front, and so she'll acknowledge our place and also say a karakia for us.
Kia ora tātou, kua hui hui mai nei tēnei ata. Ka mihi ka tika ki ngā mana whenua o tēnei rohi, ki Ngāti Raukawa, ki Ngāti Toa, Te Atiawa hoki. Just want to take a moment to acknowledge mana whenua of this space, and also just want to welcome you all here and say a specific thank you to everyone who's here as a part of the coalition doing some mahi in this energy hardship space, asking the Electricity Authority to make some changes for our whānau around to be warm at this time in winter. So thank you all for being here, and let's just I'll just say a karakia for us. This kai koho is, I guess, about an expression of hope, and so I say this as a way for us to, I guess, pledge that hope into the future, that there will be some change and there'll be some fruit that comes out of this kaupapa. So, no mai ngā hua, no mai ngā pai, no mai kia nui, kia hāwiri ai. Kia ora. I'll pass this over again to you, Kate.
Cool. Thank you. It's probably, does this pick up as well as that? I think so. I'll start by giving some background to this petition. This has come out of probably about 6 months worth of conversations and work between a number of organisations who all have a shared interest in making sure that everyone in New Zealand is able to access affordable electricity. And we collectively think that it shouldn't be a privilege to have power. The specific asks of our petition first is around banning disconnection fees. And this is one area where the poorest New Zealand households are really penalised for being poor and kicked into further hardship, because retailers are allowed to charge a disconnection fee and also a reconnection fee when a household is unable to pay their bills and they're disconnected by the retailer. So from our research into this issue, the fees range considerably, right from some companies that choose not to charge those fees at all, right through to the highest that we found was $276 total for both reconnection and disconnection. And so we are concerned about the impact that has on families already in financial hardship and proven to be so because they can't pay their bills. And we're also concerned about the lack of transparency about what those fees actually are paying for. We wrote to 16 companies and asked them to break down the fees for us. Only 5 companies responded, and none of those companies actually gave us a breakdown, only a vague statement about it being for administration and the metering company costs. So we didn't feel satisfied that we knew what those fees were, or that we could understand why there was such variation in fees when, according to the Consumer Care Guidelines, which is the sort of accepted, not necessarily best practice, but accepted practice, fees should reflect actual costs. If that's the case, why is there so much variation? So our first ask of our petition is for the Electricity Authority, who sets the rules for retailers, to ban disconnection fees so that people in hardship are not put into further hardship. The second ask of our petition is about prepay prices. Prepay electricity is used predominantly by households when they have had trouble paying their bills in the past and are no longer able to access standard plans or what's called post-pay plans because of a poor credit history. So instead, they use prepay in a very similar way to topping up your phone. However, despite the households using it being predominantly the most vulnerable, the overall costs for prepay are higher. A couple of weeks ago, Consumer NZ came out with some research about this, and they found that on average in New Zealand, prepay prices are about 13% higher than standard plans, pay monthly plans. And in Christchurch particularly, it was 17% higher. And so this is people with no other option, and for the foreseeable future, as they're still struggling to pay off their debts, having no alternative option than prepay, being charged what I consider to be a premium on being poor. So we would like the Electricity Authority to intervene here to protect the most vulnerable households by requiring retailers to ensure that prepay electricity is no more expensive than their cheapest post-pay plan. And many companies do also offer post-pay. So we would like them to take into account all the fees and all of the overall costs per kilowatt hour that a household is paying, and the discounts that they would be entitled to or able to access if they could access pay monthly plans, and ensure that prepay is not charging people a premium. We would also like another really important area of prepay to be addressed, which is that there is almost no transparency about disconnections of households on prepay. And so when you're on prepay and you can't afford to top up, your electricity is disconnected. But there is no requirement for retailers to publish those disconnection statistics. In contrast, for standard plans, they are required to publish the statistics. And so for that area, we know that about 8,000 households last year were disconnected due to unpaid bills. And so that's the disconnection fee area. But we don't know on prepay how many thousand households are not able to top up and sitting without electricity for unknown lengths of time because of the prepay prices and because they can't afford electricity. The last area of the petition is about the consumer care guidelines, which are the recommended guidelines for retailers to deal with their consumer interactions. At the moment, the Electricity Authority has left those guidelines voluntary, despite them affecting some really significant areas, life and death issues, such as people medically dependent on electricity, and households who are struggling to pay their bills and going through the process of disconnection. That is still all under this voluntary set of guidelines for retailers. There are other really important things as well, like the fees being reasonable and companies communicating with their customers in a timely manner. Things that make a huge amount of difference if you're in any degree of trouble with your retailer and want to sort something out. We think that's not good enough. We think that we need enforceable, mandatory standards about these really important areas of consumer care, and that the Electricity Authority should monitor retailers' compliance and impose penalties if companies don't follow the rules. So that's the final ask of our petition. We are asking the Electricity Authority to bring these changes into effect no later than winter 2024, because we don't want people to go through another winter when the Electricity Authority has the mandate and the power to make these changes now. They're low-hanging fruit that would make a transformative difference for thousands of households. So we invite the Electricity Authority to make those changes, and we're excited to launch this petition to garner public support for this really important set of issues. I'm now going to invite Debbie Leyland to share with us. So Debbie is a fierce advocate on many other issues, and she will also introduce herself. But welcome up Debbie, and Debbie's going to share her personal story.
Can we just put that down there or something? Kia ora, everybody. Thanks for coming out on such a horrible cold morning. Just before I start, I'd like to acknowledge Kate. I recently had a stroke and I was working with her yesterday and she was able to help me put this together. So I'm just going to read it to you because my memory's not that flash. So here we go. Anyway, kia ora, my name's Debbie Leyland. I am a chairperson for United Community Action Network UCAN, and I'm also a beneficiary. Today I really want to talk to you about electricity prices. The first time that I got disconnected, it was a few years ago. I was with the Nova Power Company. I had my children with me. I was trying to pay for the power, the internet, food and everything else, and it was disastrous. I knew the power bill was coming, but I didn't have any money to pay it. So they cut it off. They also charged a disconnection fee, and I think it was about $50, $60. So I was sitting with no power for a week while I tried to get the money together. It was really horrible, because it was winter and it was really, really cold. It took me about a week and a half to get the money to pay the bill, but then they wanted an extra $140 to reconnect my power. And can you imagine that? You know, I can't afford that. So I had to look for another power company. I went with Genesis because they were the only company that would take me because I had a bad credit rating for the last power. About 2 or 3 months later after that, we got cut off again. I didn't know what to do, so I went to WINS, which, and to be honest, was one of the most humiliating experiences of my life. The WINS worker said to me that you knew their bill was coming and that you need to go to a budgeting service, but that's a bit of a waste of time, if you don't have any money to budget. It doesn't work. WINS said that they'd pay my electricity bill directly out of my benefit to Genesis of $60, which is a lot of money if you're on a benefit. They decided that I felt that I was unreliable paying my. But the most recent situation I found myself in was last year. I had voice box cancer. I was doing radiation and chemo. It was really horrible. I just had to spend all my time in my bed because I was freezing cold. I could only use the heater about an hour a day, so they wouldn't cut off the power. So I had a timer and I could sit downstairs for an hour, and then when the timer went, it was back to bed. You know, and imagine all the beneficiaries with Genesis that are getting paid $60 before they get their benefit. Genesis is getting millions and millions of dollars, and we're sitting here freezing. I had my grandson staying with me for a while, but I had to send him home because it was just too cold for him to stay in my house. There are so many other people with mental health problems, and I know how they feel. I have severe anxiety attacks, and I've worked out that the best thing to do is to have a hot shower, but I can't afford to do that because it costs too much money. Last week, Housing New Zealand had put a heat pump into my house, and that made such a difference. Before, they put in an electric heater, which they said was the most efficient economic heater you could get. So I thought, great, I'll use it. So I put it on, not on full, had the thermostat going. My bill at the end of the month was $310. So if that's an economical heater, I hate to see what isn't. So we went back to using hot water bottles. I have a dear friend who lives down the road. She's 68, 69. I went and bought her a hot water bottle because she can't afford to turn her heater on either. Most people that live in our street are beneficiaries and they can't afford to keep their houses warm. The government has acknowledged the problem and has given the winter energy payment. but I still can't pay for food and transport and power. Well, I can pay for power now for the deduction that they take. But the power goes, and all the money goes to the power companies. That disconnection fee I had to pay, not only do you have to find the money to pay the power you've used, you have to pay the disconnection fee too, and find the money for the reconnection fee. Where does all this money come from? I've had days where I've had to decide, do I eat today or do I pay for the power? Why do I have to live like this? And I'm just one of thousands. What I want to say to the electrical authority, power companies, is power companies need to stop extorting money from poor people and elderly people so we can be moving to the ends of our lives with a bit of dignity and be warm. I want to see families available to heat their houses. The reason I'm involved in this campaign is my hope is that somebody will hear us and somebody will help and make a difference, because people are dying early because they're not heating their homes. They're living in mouldy, damp, overcrowded housing, and it's just not acceptable. I have to choose the standards that I live by. Meanwhile, electricity companies are getting rich of my poverty situation, and I'm really sick of it. We just want the same deal as everyone else who is on a livable income. We want to be able to eat properly and to be warm. Thank you.
Thanks, Debbie, for sharing that. I'd like to welcome up now Dr. Kimberly O'Sullivan. Kimberly has been a long-term researcher on energy hardship and health in her role with the He Kāinga Oranga research group with the University of Otago. And it was Kimberly's work to highlight the issues within prepay prices that helped us to understand and first get involved in this issue. So welcome, Kim.
Kia ora, tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you, Ngā mihi te Kate, especially for her hard work in this area, and thank you very much to Debbie for sharing your story so bravely. I want to share briefly some of the causes and health impacts of energy hardship. Based on the evidence, I support Common Grace's petition to the Electricity Authority to ban disconnection fees, to end the penalty for prepay, and to make consumer care mandatory for retailers. Energy hardship, sometimes called by other names like energy poverty or fuel poverty, means that a house cannot meet their energy needs. It's a problem of accessibility and affordability, but it is more complex. The energy efficiency of homes, which is a big factor in New Zealand, and the appliances contributes. And so does the supply and form of energy. And in Aotearoa, the cost and the method of payment has too much of a role. The household occupancy and who is at home and when and what their needs are is also important. Income poverty contributes, but it's just one factor, and that's why we can't fix energy poverty or energy hardship just by increasing people's incomes. We need a multiple fix approach because of the complexity of the problem and the different sectors involved in delivering us with warm, dry homes. We've heard some of the health impacts, some of the personal impacts this morning. I want to bring us back to the tragic death of Faloli Molianga, who died on 28th of May 2007 after her electricity was disconnected. She was owing a bill of $168.40. She was using an electrically powered oxygen machine at the time. Nothing has changed. Well, not a lot anyway. There is a bit more awareness, there is a bit more acknowledgement from the sector, but we do not have different rules than we had on that day. We give most thought to health effects that happen when indoor environments or homes are too cold, even though there are effects from indoor and outdoor temperatures being too hot as well. There are more deaths from cold than hot temperatures, and we have more information about these. We see effects of cold indoor temperatures like respiratory or circulatory system effects, asthma, wheezing, COPD conditions are all worsened by cold. Blood gets thicker and stickier. We see more heart attacks and more strokes. We have other conditions that get worse as well. If someone has something like arthritis or pain conditions, these are made worse by cold. We have other effects like inadequate nutrition because people are saving their money to pay for energy. Or they're not having refrigeration, or they're risking falls, or not being able to participate fully in education without lighting. We also see negative mental health effects of particularly cold housing and the stress, ongoing stress of struggling to pay for electricity and juggling the bills. These are quite hard to untangle in the research, but it always comes through very strongly when we hear people's stories and we ask how they are affected. So health effects of energy hardship are very wide-reaching. Electricity is an essential service. It's one of the 6 basic amenities that we agree are required for housing in New Zealand. Housing is a human right, and electricity is an essential service for protecting health, which is also a human right. There's a tension of using a market structure to provide an essential service, but the key issue if we're thinking about whether something is an essential service or what level of energy services are necessary for life is to think about what is normal and reasonable. What do we want everybody outside in our neighbourhood to be able to achieve? It takes much more time and energy to live in our society without electricity. Living without electricity wastes potential, it diminishes capabilities, especially diminishing children's potential with lifelong consequences. Like Kate said, I'm here today to support the call and to support the petition to the Electricity Authority. There's no need for such disconnection and reconnection fees to cause greater hardship. I'd also like to see the penalty for prepaid banned or ended, and I'd really, really like to see some change so that we have mandatory guidelines for consumer care in this country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kim. Yeah, lastly, I'd like to welcome up Jake Lilly. He's a policy advisor at FinCap, which is the umbrella organisation over our country's budgeting services. So all those hundreds of people around the country doing really, really important work of helping people to juggle things, this impossible juggle, to try to pay their bills. And he speaks with all of that, I guess, evidence from their experiences around the country. So welcome, Jake.
Kia ora tātou, I ai ki te whakatauki, he aha te mihi nui o te ao, he tangata, he tangata, he tangata, he mihi nui ki te taranaki whānui whanaunga, nā kai te ake o te whenua ata ahua nei, ki te whanganui atara. As Kate said, we work with the financial mentors all around the country, and FinCap is calling for action so that we all have warm homes, and we have warm showers and warm kai in those homes as well. Financial mentors are regularly telling us that too many whānau are just needing food support because creditors are constantly hassling them. And part of that, of course, is the electricity retailers as well. We support this petition, calling for some changes that are low-hanging fruit, as Kate said before. Ban those disconnection and reconnection fees. They're completely counterproductive. People are walking into financial mentors' offices around the country in crisis. If you add another debt in there, it's just going to take longer for them to get on top of things. People are up against insolvency, Kiwis have a hardship withdrawals, which just makes problems worse and worse and worse, where extra fees like that are added on. Prepay being more expensive, very much it is the case, as Kate said before, that people have no other option but prepay. And speaking to financial mentors as well, we hear of a lot of people even being in a difficult situation where they have to sign up in someone else's name because they're so excluded from the electricity system, which is outright an essential service. And making the consumer care guidelines mandatory and monitoring and penalties, that's the standard all around the world. All other comparable jurisdictions have these rules and strong penalties in place. We need to catch up. Beyond this, we continue to point out that no whānau should ever be disconnected because they can't pay. It's an essential service. We need it for our health, our well-being. Our social participation, as already has been covered. It's the front line of the health system. It's really a ridiculous debt collection tool for a company to have. So we've pointed out this over and over again. Under our current settings, things aren't really working. And it seems like the electricity system, to some degree, lost the plot at some stage and forgot what it was there to do, which is to keep us all warm and healthy. We welcome the progress being made, and there is some progress. Especially in establishing the Independent Consumer Advocacy Council, and we look forward to getting behind them, getting these low-hanging fruit across the line, and then seriously looking at other rules that need to be brought into place to make things fairer, ongoing. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa.
Thank you, Jake. So that brings us to a close this morning. But before we wrap up, I would actually, like to address the Electricity Authority in case they're listening on the live stream, which we warmly invited them to come along this morning, but that had late notice. So we look forward to ongoing conversations with them. But I just would like to invite them into what is a really real opportunity that they have to transform these thousands of people's lives. We were really excited to see the new statutory objective that they have to represent the interests of small consumers. So there's no doubt at all that the Electricity Authority has the authority and has the mandate to make these changes. And we do know that they have interest in hearing more from consumer groups, and we've had meetings with them already, and we look forward to having more. So I guess just we're really excited about the potential for change within the next year, so that by next winter these are issues of the past. For those of us who are here today and would like to get involved, I've left on the seats some bits of paper about our petition. So the link is tinyurl.com/powerpricesnz. So please do sign that petition and share it as widely as you can. If you'd like to get more involved, we've got a website on which you can sign up, and we'd love to connect with you, your organisations, or others that you recommend who might like to endorse this petition. You'll see we've got a number of organisations that have already done that, and we just welcome more as well. And if you personally are passionate about this and want to get involved, we'd love to have you involved in some way. We're also looking for more people to share their stories, and that can be anonymous, because we know the power of real human stories publicised to make this issue real and grounded. So if that interests you, the website is everyoneconnectednz.com. And we've also got a Facebook page that you can follow, which is Everyone Connected. So very, again, my thanks for joining us today in person and those online, and we look forward to seeing change in this area. We'll be watching closely for change in this area, and we'd love you to get involved so that we can do it together. Thanks. We'll leave it there.